The first moment, I want to respect the story, because you could stop forever and not take the whole thing in. And so I read it as a proper story, beginning to end. And then, of course, I'm thinking of stuff, but I don't allow myself to, I allow myself to finish, because you will always stop with ideas. And then the second reading is, let me see what could be visually in my mind for each certain characters, right? And then the third time, if I have that amount of time, I think this is everybody, or maybe it's just me, I'm not sure, but my brain kind of explodes when I read something new, like a script or an episode. And there's so many things that are kind of these tiny bits of ideas visually, and it has nothing to do with clothing usually. It has a lot to do with films I may have thought about, or a body of music, or a trip that I took. I spend so much time taking road trips, and I do that to get back into nature as a kind of cleansing moment to start again the next project, and to be inspired, obviously. But sometimes I'm just always taking photos and I know that I don't know why I'm taking that photo, but it'll show up as an image for later. So that's before. But what happens when I'm reading the script is that I will be like, oh God, that's why I took a picture of that certain mushroom in the corner of that wood, which made no sense at the time, but that shape is what I really want in this clothing outfit, costume change, but it's really about a kind of rounded, abstract shape. So really, it takes me a really long time to read a script, because it's mental, it's emotional, psychological in the first read, and then it's sort of zoning in or focusing in on who are the tellers of the story, who are the ones that jump out to me, who are the ones that don't jump out to me, because often they're the most interesting, right? They're the ones with a hidden story, literally and figuratively. And then, hopefully, if you have the time, a third and fourth read where, honest to God, because often for interviews or for the work at hand, there was a moment last year where I had 7 interviews and 7 scripts to break down, and they were all world building. So I couldn't, coddle myself and be like, girl, take your 6 days for every script. I didn't have that. So I have a problem with throwing out images in my phone, in my computer, because I am a neo-Luddite and I can't find it again. So it's highly disorganized for most people looking at my stuff. But what I realize is when I want to create a mini movie per episode or script, it's all right there. And I'm like, okay, I'm calling the imagery. Often there's a body of music that I have to hear. And that kind of symbiosis of images, of course I'm doing research and getting new stuff. But bizarrely, there are some images from my personal life that always enter in. With this kind of personal music that immediately inspires me, it's usually without words. And I'm embarrassed to say, some of it has been music I've listened to for 1,000 years, since the very beginning. One of those, which harkens back to my time in Kentucky, tape recording, those bird sounds, the things that always come back. That's before I could drive. And when I could drive, I think I was a late driver. I think I was a 16-year-old instead of a 15-year-old, or however that works. I literally was driving around again before the sun would come up, right? Because I wanted to see these different worlds, farmlands, that kind of thing in Kentucky that I didn't live on. I wanted to see kind of what nature saw in man before the sun came up, because I knew that the songs were better before the sun came up. And it's kind of a way of examining humans and mankind. But what I was listening to was either gospel in Black churches that I didn't come from, right? Buddhism and Episcopalians, very devout English Episcopalians, gospel, black Southern gospel, and preachers ranting on those radio stations. That was the new thing, driving, listening to the radio. But also, my whole life I was listening to bird sounds and whale songs, right? I don't know when this happened. There was a whole kind of George C. Scott porpoise film and Farewell to Tarwathi whale, like a song with whale music, whale songs playing. I love John Denver. I got a letter from him about what we were going to do about nuclear policy in the States. Like, I was that kid, And I listened to that same whale music while working on a TV show called Invasion, because it was aliens. And so I was walking around. I said this to the director I'm working with now, and there's a kind of, we'll talk about this later, but he just did the film The Whale. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I listen to whale songs in the middle of the city because that dichotomy is really intriguing to me and improbable, but perfect, So I will listen to Aretha Franklin's gospel music, which a lot of Californian assistants are like, I really loved you until this moment. I'm like, no, it's not religious. It's this cacophony of sound that touches your soul if you can accept this, not a religious way, but a kind of touching those parts of your physical body and your etherical body to make you create something bigger than you. Bigger than what you know, bigger than your life experience, and it will touch the person in a physical and emotional way. So that's why I listen to Aretha, and she's also beautiful, her gospel. I listen to weird shit like Just Nature, because often I'm in a city and I'm craving that part, because it's the purest form of sound. But while driving around as a teenager, I fell in love with the songs of like Woody Guthrie and people. And I think it's because I'm an immigrant that I was like, good morning, America. How are you? I heard that at 3 a.m, and while, yes, I was listening to whatever's on the radio, pop music wise, my parents only listened to jazz from my dad and classical from my mom. So I didn't really hear anything else in the house other than that. But the radio was the kind of means to be educated on music. And Woody Guthrie, man, like I listened to that for Justified, right? I listened to those kind of hard scrabble poets who would sing to be inspired. I listened to mountain music. I listen to that because it's not a part of my makeup, and I want to know what the ancestors of those characters listened to before things went awry and the world turned to Walmart and Oxycontin. I want to know the, Appalachia that was green and beautiful and a promise to people from other countries who were like, hey, let's settle here. There's everything. Of course, they stole it from the Indians who found it first. But, I want to have that ugly pretty, and it has to be imbued by music as well.